Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Black Cat Show. I'm Cody Lee, the author of books such as Cruel and Beautiful and Eye of the Dragon and the upcoming Rabbit Hole, which is coming along very well, I must say. Owner and editor of blackcatbooks.org, owner of this YouTube channel, soon to be extremely successful online personality. Cody Lee, me. We have a great show for you tonight. A lot to talk about. Funnily enough, about video games, because I simply have not been talking a lot about video games, and there's a couple of reasons for that. For one thing, I'm making major moves forward in like my writing career. Things like setting up the website, monetizing the website, linking everything, setting everything up, expanding my audience, doing everything I need to do to like be really successful in the online space, right? Like, of course, I've been busy with that for the most part for the past couple of months. Obviously, I've been like very committed in working out, playing great games like Ring Fit Adventure or Splatoon 2. Obviously, I've been playing. Reading a lot of books, watching a lot of shows. I spent a lot of time today watching Batman the Animated Series, by the way, which is fantastic, and I'm sure I will be talking about that at a later date as I go through these episodes, and I'll finally be able to put my thoughts about this series in words. Definitely one of the better cartoons of my childhood. I don't want to say the best because I already don't think it is, but I do like it a lot more, I think, than basically every other iteration of Batman that I've seen or care for. Like I did a review of Batman Year One on the YouTube channel. I got it from like Amazon Kindle or something like that. Prime Reading. I read this fucking comic and I was just like, no, this is garbage, awful. Not a fan of Western comic books at all. But a lot of Batman. A lot of aspects of the Batman the Animated Series, it kind of comes together sometimes. I love the visual style and things like that. There are plenty of things I like about the cartoon. I suppose it's good for kids. That's kind of my mindset towards it right now, is that it's like, I just don't think it's like something that I, as an adult, really like all that much. In fact, as an adult, I'm being more critical of it and not really being all that, not all that interested in a lot of its aspects, like in a lot of its characters. Like this watch through, for example, I'm surprised at how much I don't like the Joker and how much I kind of find him as an antagonist to be boring. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think it's all that interesting. Again, I'll have to go through the entire show. Like, Harley Quinn has actually not been introduced yet, so again, I'm still getting through the first season, which I think is like something like 5 discs long, something crazy like that. So yeah, we still have a lot to go before we really start solidifying how this show holds up. But yeah, I like it. It's not bad at all. I just don't want to say it's the best ever, and I suppose compared to shit today, which looks awful, like just whenever I see shit today, this Flash animated garbage like modern Looney Tunes, modern Tom and Jerry, like every single decade, they look worse and worse. Scooby-Doo looks worse than it did a decade ago, 15 years ago. Like, they look like Flash cartoons. Like, they look awful, and I feel so bad for kids today. I would be very surprised if most kids weren't mostly just watching anime or older shows like Avatar or the original Teen Titans, because I don't see how anybody could just watch some of this stupid shit like Adventure Time, garbage. Adventure Time was never good. Adventure Time is over now, so I guess I'm a little bit late on the ball to like complain about Adventure Time, but like that was kind of the moment, I think, when I watched it for the first time. I was just like, you know what? Modern cartoons are dead. Like, watching Adventure Time, it really was just oh, we're gonna pander to stoners now. We're gonna pander to millennials. We're gonna pander to people who haven't got real jobs, haven't grown up. And again, there's a difference between like making a really compelling cartoon that everyone can enjoy, like Batman, versus like Adventure Time's attempts at being deeper, complex. Oh, the world is the way it is because of a nuclear explosion. Ooh, how that's deep and complex. Ooh, Princess Bubblegum is a lesbian. Ooh, like I can't be the only person who's getting sick of like lesbians being shoved into everything. Like it's especially prevalent with like cartoons, I think. And I mean, I love how I say this when I have like Edelgard right behind me, but it's really obnoxious. I'm really starting to detest it. Like, lesbians do not exist. Just get it through your head. Just get it through your skulls, you delusional fucks. Like, I don't know, man. With the modern sort of regressive left, we're going to be talking about this, that the progressive left, or rather the communist, right, as we should probably just declare them now. Progressive left is communism. Like, I don't know, man. It's not sustainable. It's really not. Like, they literally are in a position where they cannot win, right? They literally spent decades, like, infiltrating these institutions, academia, animation studios, entertainment, government. Like, they spent decades like building up this sort of cause, right? And it's completely collapsing among itself because it isn't sustainable. Like, it's not going to lead to a better country. People are going to realize that, and they're going to demand, as they have been for the past several years, that we need to stop giving blacks money. We need to stop bringing in like unlimited immigrants to this country, and we need to like stop things like feminism. Feminism isn't feminism. Everything about feminism has been toxic to society. Let's see. Where else was I getting at? Shit. Anyway, there's lots of things we could do to improve this country right now. And I think with these riots, I think with the re-election of the God Emperor, Donald Trump, we're sort of reaching the point where, like, I think people have sort of caught on that these academics, they can't be trusted. The left-wing media, they can't be trusted. Your educational institutions, the colleges, your teachers in public schools, they can't be trusted. Like, you just sort of have to... People are starting to realize that these people are actively undermining your success and your future. And you need to sort of, like, just get around it no matter how you can. Like, again, lots of people I know are just avoiding college because they know it's a shit show. Girls are going to college, getting ran through, and then coming out with, like, I don't know, $100,000 in debt with no way to pay it off. Just like, that like accumulates with interest. Like it just, they won't pay it off until like their 50s or 60s. Like even if they get like something ridiculous, like a $200,000 a year job, right? They're not gonna pay off shit because they're just gonna pile on more and more debt, more and more things, and just continue to decline in their financial well-being. And I do think that's a big lesson I think we need to learn. Stop taking out debts. Like, how hard is it to like not buy something if you can't afford it? Like, I'm seeing people like finance vehicles, homes, educations, like all sorts of shit. Like, no, just wait until you have enough money to pay for it outright. Like, that's what I did, and it's probably the big reason why I'm so comfortable, like, pulling stunts, like, randomly quitting jobs, randomly just doing whatever, randomly doing all this stuff, completely changing career paths, being flexible, making more money, again, acquiring new skills all the time. Like I said, like networking and social media stuff, website design, well, not really design, building a website to begin with, right? That's kind of a new thing for me, right? Like having an actual online platform, that's completely new to me. And that was a skill that like I wouldn't have acquired if I didn't, decide to like, okay, I want to avoid college. I want to avoid working 16-hour days, right? Like, I want to avoid, like, working 8 hours and then going to class and then going to bed. Like, that's just stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's stupid that you're expected to work that much for basically nothing, right? Like, it's just, I saw through it at a young age, and I think more and more people are starting to come around to my line of thinking, right? Like, it's complete nonsense, especially when you're not really guaranteed a job out of college, right? Like, so many people are getting degrees and aren't getting shit. Like, I'm seeing people leave school, for careers they've spent like a decade preparing for, right? And not being happy with what they're doing. Oh, I should have been an Instagram thought. Like, I know someone who seriously tried to say that, and then she like immediately backtracked and was like, oh no, I was just kidding. But like, I could tell, like they really do, women especially, really do long for like the thought life, right? They really do long for just be given money to exist. Basically, they want to be celebrities. They want to be like, they want to have people look at them, pay attention to them, give them money, like that kind of mindset. They don't want to work. You know what I mean? They don't want jobs. Like, they just think that like working is a way so they can get a higher echelon of man, basically, like someone with more money in their bank account, and it's not happening. It's simply not. Like, successful people like myself will just go for younger women. Like, shit. Like, again, like the girls I'm talking to now tend to be in like the 20, 23 range, if not a little bit younger even. With the last one I talked to, it's just like, why would I need to talk to someone with a career? Like, it's pointless, and I think that's kind of the going to be the logic going forward when it comes to these to people, right? When it comes to Zoomers, younger individuals, people who are going to school, like, don't take women in your age group all that seriously, like career women all that seriously. Like, they're just they're being thoughts. They're going to try to use you or manipulate you or try to talk down to you or whatever. Like, just ignore them and just focus on your career first, and then ignore them after you become successful. Like, that's really all it is. It's just that's really all it takes. Like, focus on your success first, and then you'll be perfectly fine. I keep going off on tangents about this weird stuff. I'm not sure how much people care about like my thoughts on education, but like that's something that like I think needs to change a lot. Is just this obsessive sort of mindset that like you need to get an education to be successful. Like, so many retarded teachers seriously tried to tell me that like, oh, if you don't go to college, you'll be working at McDonald's forever. I've never had to work McDonald's in my life. You know why? Because I didn't take that job. I think I was like, how much do McDonald's workers make? Like, they have to make minimum wage. Like, okay, yeah. So I think my first job, I was making more money than a McDonald's worker. I believe. I could be wrong about that. I could be incorrect. I could be... I could be wrong. I don't know how much McDonald's workers make, right? But I was making more money with my first job, and I've constantly just expanded since then. Acquiring new practical skills that I can utilize to become, build up a proper career, right? In which I always wanted to do, right? Was to be a novelist, right? To be successful, to start my own website. Well, the website thing wasn't really a thing. To write my own books and have people check them out and buy them and give me money, make me successful. That's always been the goal. That's what I've been building up to, and I am living that life. People are buying my books. People are checking out blackcatbooks.org. Oh, thank you all so much for your continued support, by the way. I really deeply appreciate it. People are checking out the website. I'm coming up with new ways to make money. I've started talking about manga I'm reading and games I've been playing and TV shows I've been watching. Like, there's all sorts of things that I've been doing that I would think will make blackcatbooks.org a huge, huge success. And I kind of hope the definitive sort of center for this kind of sphere of just this kind of counterculture, I think, has been propping up, like, regarding the current state of things, right? This current sort of corruption of the entertainment industry. Like, I hope we can sort of move past it, push past it, and really, really get people talking about the good books, like the legitimately good, compelling, engaging books you can read right now all throughout the nation, like from all sorts of different authors, right? Like, I don't think people have been talking enough about like the problems in the publishing industry specifically. Like everyone I've seen talking about SJWs in the entertainment sphere have been talking about like anime, have been talking about localizers, have been talking about video games, have been talking about like comic books especially. I don't see a lot of people talking about like books and how like people have sort of been filtering certain kinds of creators from becoming successful because of their personal views. I hope I'll be able to talk about that in greater depth as this show continues. I was looking at Agents today, actually, not today, maybe yesterday, a while back, a couple of days ago, and I was surprised at just like, wow, these people aren't demanding books. They're demanding like diversity. They're demanding shit like, oh, I want to read about a black/Cuban family immigrating to America. Like, where's the story in that? Like, why is like the entire angle like always like that diversity? Like, oh, I want to see trans kids in books. Oh, I want to see like a fantasy with a female with a lesbian. Like, I want to see a young adult book series featuring a lesbian protagonist. Like, they always like say shit like that. Like, they're incredibly vague about what the actual story is supposed to be like. You know what I mean? But they want the diversity. They want the strong female leads. They don't want actual people being creative. You know what I mean? They don't want actual new ideas, new stories, like things that people would actually want to read. Like they want propaganda, basically. Like that's what it is. Like they have to keep shoving trannies in your face in order to try and normalize it. And it's not working, by the way. As we'll be getting into later, I wanted to talk about J.K. Rowling today. Our girl, J.K. I stand with J.K. Rowling. Let's just throw that out there. Our girl, J.K. Rowling. But, yeah, we'll be getting into that later. What was I supposed to talk about today? I've been talking like about random shit for like 15 minutes. Wow, unbelievable. Well, I started a little bit late today, so I was just like, okay, where am I going to start? Okay, so Avengers. Right, everyone's favorite superhero team. Forget the Wonderful 101. Forget the Justice League. The Avengers are where it's at. They are the greatest superhero team in existence because their movie did very well at the box office. Like, I don't know who the Avengers are. I don't care. They look lame as fuck. All these characters are boring. Like, I don't care about Marvel. I don't care for Marvel. But let's see. Let me see if I can get an actual... Yeah, here we go. Marvel's Avengers has a paid battle pass for every superhero after launch. I want to read this article before I really give my thoughts on this. Crystal Dynamics has always promised that the superheroes added to Marvel's Avengers after launch will always be free. But what it didn't tell us until now is that the cosmetics associated with those characters will have to be unlocked via a purchasable battle pass. So basically, you have to pay to, I think, unlock new powers for your hero. As part of a new blog post on the game's official website, it is stated that the 6 superheroes arriving in the base game will all have their hero challenge cards unlocked straight away. Starting with Hawkeye, the most popular Avenger by far, you'll then need to purchase these cards separately for 1,000 credits. This currency can only be bought with real-world money, and $5 will net you 500 credits. That means a single hero challenge card works out exactly $10. To be clear, the character itself and the story gameplay mechanics and the locations associated with them will be free of charge. After you pay for the game... Okay, I have a lot to say about this, but like, it's remarkable how little enthusiasm there is among the very deeply the very deeply obsessive Marvel fan base, right? The MCU, the most popular movie franchise, I would say ever. I would say among complete degenerate retards. Even those people aren't thrilled about this. Like, I was surprised. It really did feel like that Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 had more hype and publicity than this. And that game was like, looked like a really budget, sort of Wii-ish sort of beat 'em up game that didn't really appeal to these people. But this is the kind of stupid bullshit that I just hate. Like, I cannot stand these games that just throw all this unnecessary sort of downloadable content at you, paid downloadable content, like, you can buy all these different characters. Why weren't they in the base game? Oh, well, they're DLC. Why were they not in the base game? Like, they're just, like, you don't need to milk your audience for stupid shit like this. And I am expecting, I really do expect this game to, like, bomb. Like, I am expecting, with all the negative hype it's getting, all the bad publicity, I don't think this is going to work. Like, this model just doesn't work. I think they're going to try to, like, release it at a $60 price tag and then have you pay for this additional content. Like, I don't think that's going to work. Like, I really don't. Like, who is paying for all this shit? Like, I don't think anybody is. Like, I love Mortal Kombat 11, right? Like, I was a big fan of that game. I only bought the DLC for the expansion, for the story pack, for the expanded Aftermath DLC, which is, I don't know, like, I kind of enjoyed it, but I kind of had issues. Anyway, so again, really, really love Mortal Kombat 11. Really, really love games like Dragon Ball FighterZ and stuff like that. But I don't go out of my way to buy the character packs because I have my main, I have the guy that I'm playing as, and I'm leveling up, and I'm spending a lot of time, like, learning how the fundamentals of how he plays and, like, how I can use to compete and stuff like that. Like, I don't necessarily need more characters, you know what I mean? Like, oh, more characters is better. Well, I mean, maybe in something like Smash, which is accessible, but, like, in most fighting games, which are way more intricate, like, I don't want to learn an entirely new character just because, like, oh, look, Sindel is in the game, or, like, oh, the Terminator versus RoboCop. Like, who cares? Like, I just should have been in the base game. Like, I generally will not go out of my way to buy these DLC characters, and neither should you. And I hope that people sort of stand up and against Avengers. I really want to see what. Oh wait, is he seriously defending this? Is our boy OJ defending this, or is he being sarcastic? This seems like the kind of thing he would be against. I just find the whole thing so disappointing. The game is fun, but is it even out yet? But they just have to push the limits of what microtransaction consumers will put up with because it's Avengers. I want them probably buying the game to not yet see. If this game was free to play, it would be fine, but as of right now, it's awful, so it's not free to play. Okay. So, what a idiot. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Did they seriously think this is gonna work? Like, no. Eventually, consumers are going to have enough. Like, of course you have a lot of pay pigs, obviously, but they're not on console games. Like, you know what? Like, I think most pay pigs are going for, like, OnlyFans thoughts. Ooh, yeah, damn. The simps, the OnlyFans, the Bella Thorne situation. The end of OnlyFans is near. Like, Thoughts won't be able to continue paying their bills. It's just because of what happened with that. Maybe that could be a subject for tomorrow's show, because I kind of had a lot of stuff that I specifically wanted to talk about. But essentially, OnlyFans put limits on how much people can give you or whatever, and how frequent their payouts are. Because Bella Thorne, like, somehow ripped off like $2 million from them and, like, got a ton of chargebacks. So, like, completely fucking over this company, right? It's really, really good to see. OnlyFans was always a complete joke. Simps are pathetic. Thoughts are pathetic. Don't enable their behavior. Again, they're no different than, like, these companies, right? It's the same thing. Like, ooh, Like they're just ripping you off, and you're just throwing money at them because you're a dipshit, or their audience is a dipshit. I doubt that any of my actual audience are simps. Like going by what you guys have told to me, you people have made it very clear you don't like those people, and I don't either. For the record, honestly, I don't talk shit. I don't know enough simps. Like I'm thinking back on it, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like I've never seen someone like simp for a woman. Like everyone I've seen like in real life, like who I imagine would be a simp, like they'll stalk them and they'll like be weird to women, but they won't like give them money or gifts or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of my my feeling on that. It's just again like typical. Maybe they're just simps on the DL. Maybe I just don't observe it. But I've never seen like a simp in real life. I don't think. Like yeah, I have. I'm thinking back now. Yeah, I have. Yeah, one of those stalkers I mentioned. Yeah, I saw him simp for a girl once. Never mind. Of course, we would never do that. We of the Black Cat Show would never enable this degeneracy. All right, so yeah, Avengers is looking like complete trash, and you absolutely should not. Oh, wait, did Boogie2988 respond to this? I guess we could watch his video. Yeah, every time I scroll through here, what's his take on this? Bill and Ted Face the Music. Damn, you just know he's going to damage control the PS5 hard. Okay, so... Alright, so what do I need now? Avengers... game? Is it really already out and nobody gives a shit? Like, it doesn't feel like anybody is really talking about it. Final preview? Preview? Really? Really? Is it really already out? I haven't seen a single person talk about this, like, positively. Like, unbelievable. Alright, so... okay, I guess we could check 4chan. Let's see, Avengers. Avengers keeps getting worse. Push square. Avengers has a paid battle pass for every superhero after launch. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's all we have to say about this. It's a scam. Don't support it. Avengers are trash. Okay, so what was I going to cover next? Let me look at my screen here. Like, unbelievable. All right, so... yeah, so the whole communism thing, and then J.K. Rowling... damn, where do I even start with this? Like, I have always been, like, really, really aggressive about this. Like, I mean, always. But over the past couple of weeks, like, I've been kind of adamant about this. Antifa is communism. Black Lives Matter is communist. And I don't think I really did a good job of, like, explaining why or how I know this or, like, what exactly the reason for this is. And I do think, like, a big reason for this is, like, they kind of keep it on the down low. They don't want to come out and say that, like, yeah, we're communists. They just, basically what they do is they just say, like, shit like, oh, all Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter, and then just repeat that, and then, like, out of nowhere say shit like, oh, we also support women, people of color, minorities, trannies, transgender individuals, globalism and the dissolution of the nuclear family. Like, you need to be dependent on the state, and that's kind of their that's kind of their angle. Google being a degenerate as always. That's, as I understand, completely inaccurate. Here we go. All right. Honestly, why am I even using Google? I really need to get... I have Ecosia installed. I should just be using that. Can I just go there? There we go. Okay, so... Black Lives Matter... communism. I wonder if this actually pops anything up. Oh, Communist Party USA. Look who is behind the BLM movement. Black Lives Matter is a communist organization. Like I said, it's not like It's not some unknown opinion. What is this? Communist Party USA, People and Planet before Profits. Black Lives Matter. This is the third printed and updated edition of the Black Lives Matter pamphlet. These are difficult times. Our nation is in the throes of a triple-layer crisis of COVID-19, a deep economic crisis with 50 million people unemployed. Who the fuck do you know who's unemployed? And an escalating nationwide struggle against the virus of racist police murders? Like what? What? You're gonna put the cops doing their job on the same level as COVID-19, the alleged Chinese super plague, the economic crisis that has been plaguing us, for years, right? You're gonna compare those things to the fucking police. Like, oh man, this virus thing, it's so bad, but it's nowhere near as terrible as the racist police. It just, holy fucking shit. These people are completely delusional. All right, there is another dimension that negatively affects everything. We have a white nationalist, neo-fascist president in the White House. Oh no, it's not enough to say nationalist and fascist. They have to throw white and neo onto it. Like, white makes nationalism worse. Neo-fascist, oh no, is that like a super fascist? So rather than being literally Hitler, he's like super Hitler, like he's Hitler from Krypton. Like shit, we better get some kryptonite to deal with this neo-fascist president. These problems are rooted in a general crisis of U.S. capitalism. What? Oh yes, it's capitalism. Oh no, capitalism is the enemy of racism. All right, capitalism is why we have a racist society. But the thing that worries the ruling class most is the massive, I always go on about being successful, right? I always go on about making money. I am not the ruling class. Most people are not the ruling class. You know what I mean? And most people think you're full of shit. Okay. The thing that worries the ruling class most is the massive multiracial, anti-racist movement that has exploded on the scene all across the nation in these Democrat-controlled cities. The latest figures I have seen show large, powerful protests in nearly every state and in 300 cities. Millions continue to march from sea to shining sea. And nothing is going to get accomplished. Like, literally nothing. Like, Derek Chauvin is going to get convicted. Kyle Rittenhouse isn't going to... It is House, right? I keep wanting to say Ham, but I think it is House. Kyle isn't going to get convicted. Like, you've basically, I think, squandered all of your carefully constructed narrative on this attempt at, like, proving the police to be racist. Like, you failed to do that. Like, you've convinced basically no one. If anything, like, I am, like, extremely against the idea of, like, accusing the police of doing anything wrong after these protests. Because, like, after everything I've seen how these people will, like, sort of pretend to be injured, pretend to not be doing anything, pretending to be, like, innocent, like, for the cameras, right? Even though, like, I've seen how these people will do, like, all this terrible shit before the cameras start rolling, and then they'll just, like, sort of pretend that, like, oh no, I'm being oppressed. Like, fuck you. All right. The capitalist 1% and their white ring allies are not serious about eliminating racism. Yeah, I am proud to prefer Asian and Hispanic women. Like, I do not like white women, and you will never be able to take that from me. That is why they are engaging in a vicious campaign to slander, derail, and smash this historic moment. But the movement remains united and is growing. If anything, I think it's shrinking. But united? No. You're really alienating your audience. I think, like, so many Democrats are, like, voting for Trump this election cycle because so many of their politicians are so full of shit when it comes to this. Like, this is the thing about the last 4 years. What have the Democrats actually pledged to do other than stop Donald Trump? Like, nothing. Like, here's a newsflash. Like, even if you don't like Trump, even if you don't even if you don't agree with him on everything, like, you can sort of treat him like a normal person, right? The Democrats have sort of consistently refused to do that, and as a result, they've sort of they're willing to go to extreme lengths to sabotage Trump, by destroying these entire cities, trying to force his hand, basically. They were going to. The plan, I think, was to have Trump just send in the National Guard against the wishes of the Democrat elite, and sort of march down there. So the newspapers could run Trump sends military to do peaceful protests. That was their plan, and he didn't fall for it. So what happened is that a bunch of innocent people got fucked over by the Democrats, because Trump is not responsible for these individual cities. That's on the plate of the mayors and the local governments, which have again consistently refused to do anything about this situation. Trump and his white nationalist allies, who are armed, want to wreak havoc. They are deliberately trying to discredit this historic movement against racism and turn it into a gang of looters and arsonists. I think you did that to yourselves, you cucks. But it is not working. It has worked. Shame on the fascists who are responsible. They should be weeded out and prosecuted. Holy shit. I'm going to get prosecuted for making fun of communists on the internet. I am going to be prosecuted for calling bitches fat, for calling them looters, for shitting on them. No, I'm going to be prosecuted. That should be illegal. I should not be allowed to do that. Holy shit. All right, so Trump looked ridiculous to everyone when he attacked demonstrators at the White House so that he could stage his Bible-toting photo op that the ministers of the church roundly condemned. That was as phony as his attack on Antifa. We need to be in solidarity with Antifa. Is there actually conflict in between these two parties? I actually don't know anything about the Communist Party of the USA. I haven't heard anyone bring them up when it comes to this situation, but they probably don't have as much influence as. Again, I think this is the official Communist Party of the USA, who have no real power or influence, as opposed to the underground one that is enabling these rioters. We'll see. These right-wing provocations aimed at identifying the peaceful vast majority of protesters with those who are looting and setting fires must and will be defeated. As George Floyd's brother put it, we don't have to loot and burn. We can win this fight. We have the numbers. So why aren't you condemning the looters and burners? Why are you enabling them? You complete faggot. With respect to some who are breaking... Oh no! I respect those who are breaking into stores around the city. Oh man, we don't enable, we don't condone, we don't support looting or burning, but we definitely respect them. Wow, kind of a mixed message here. I take a different view. Let's remember the people are trapped in desperate poverty and can't survive. These are people without the basics of food and decent shelter. You can literally go to a homeless shelter in America. It's not that hard. During the Great Depression, on the Iron Range in Hibbing, Minnesota, working families were starving and so desperate they organized a looting of the general store to get food for their families. These were mainly white workers. That story was told to me by Gus Hull, who went on to become the General Secretary of the Communist Party, USA. Today, just like back then, our people will not starve. The Justice for George Floyd movement is winning. It forced Minnesota authorities to fire and arrest Derek Chauvin along with the other cops who aided Floyd's public execution. The protest also resulted in the appointing of Attorney General Keith Ellison at the head of the prosecution. The tragic video of the callous murder of George Floyd and linking with Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, and Eric Garner has given birth to this new movement. We extend our congratulations, solidarity, and support. Among its just demands are defund the police, a popular demand for police departments not to be the largest item on municipal and state budgets, set federal standards for police behavior. They already have standards. Establish local civilian-run police accountability boards with the right to discipline, fire, and prosecute police misconduct. I think this is just a movement to sort of infiltrate and sort of ruin the police force. They've ruined everything else. They want the police force to be under the thumb of the communists and preventing certain like they don't want the police force to like rebel against them when they try to take your guns, for example. That's probably a big reason why they're pushing for this, because so many police officers came out like against like all these anti-gun legislation, which shouldn't be passed, by the way. But ban chokeholds and strangulation holds. Oh, you shouldn't restrain these poor individuals at all. Pass a bill to make public the records of police brutality and use of lethal force. Isn't that information already public? Like Nick Ricciardo's always bringing that up. Trump must resign. Oh yes, Trump is responsible for this. Let's turn the marches in the strings to marches to the ballot box in November and beyond. Below, find our take on the Black Lives Matter struggle in New York and other cities. We look forward to your comments and feedback, where we have come from. With capitalism came modern American slavery and the government policy of racist oppression and brutality. Our history as a nation, it's kind of interesting how, like, I came from a similar, worse situation than these people and have somehow surpassed it. Like, I'm not going to say that, like, working class doesn't suck, because it does, and you shouldn't treat the workers as badly as you do, but, like, all you have to do is, like, don't work to them as hard and pay them more. That's really it. You don't need, like, a complete overhaul of the entire working process. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need this crazy shit. Our history as a nation shows capitalism and slavery are an especially toxic mix. It has taken tens of millions of lives over the centuries. Oh yeah, no one's died under communism. Turning human beings into commodities to be bought and sold and basically worked to death meant a level of viciousness, brutality, and suffering that humanity had never experienced. Maintaining the system required a reign of terror to try to prevent people from pursuing freedom. The system of chattel slavery was defeated, but racial oppression remains a cornerstone of capitalist rule in our country. After the defeat of the old Jim Crow in the 1960s, new forms were created. The majority of African Americans remain segregated and unequal in most vital areas of life, basically because of their own actions. Jim Crow extended the reign of terror by keeping millions of African Americans, and other people of color trapped in poverty, ill-housed, ill-fed, poorly educated, brutalized by the police, and incarcerated at the highest rate in the world. Because blacks commit more crimes. Like, it's not that difficult. Stop committing so many crimes. 13% of the population, 50% of the crime. Jim Crow extended the reign of terror by keeping millions of African Americans. Oh wait, I already read this. All of this was not possible without systemic structural racism, including a policy of racial exclusion to make it work. Racial profiling in law enforcement and in private and public employment has a central place in a system of oppression. Public employment is a good example of why these people are full of shit. I've worked around blacks, right? I've worked around blacks with like impoverished backgrounds. They leave, because they just can't handle working. That's the entire reason why they don't want to show up and work. That's all there is to it. Holding black folks in deep poverty and oppression in order to keep people, especially working class people, racially divided remains a basic part of U.S. capitalist rule. It is a central reason the ruling 1% can maintain their power and privilege. Most African Americans, Native Americans, Latinos, Asian, and Pacific peoples who find themselves trapped in a super-exploited, racially oppressed crisis state of existence are there not because they are childlike, criminal, inferior, lazy, unintelligent, or violent, or like... Wait, what? Native Americans, most African Americans are not... who find themselves trapped in a super-exploited, racially oppressed, crisis state of existence are there not because they are childlike, criminal, inferior, lazy, intelligent. It is the system of racial oppression. Yeah, that's basically a run-on sentence. Like, that sentence doesn't make any sense. It is the system of racial oppression and terror that's primarily responsible, and this is what must be challenged. This should be the historic mission of all people of goodwill who want a democratic and humane society with economic and social equality and justice for all. The new Jim Crow. Since Reagan's elections in the 1980s, things have taken an even more ominous turn. The impact of the structural crisis of U.S. capitalism meant massive numbers of hardworking people, often long-term union members, becoming the long-term unemployed and underemployed. Yeah. Came severe brutalization by police. Entrapment reached new heights. Communities of color were basically under siege. Millions were criminalized. The drugs did bring more violence and killing, but who brought in the drugs and guns? Let's see. They just call these policies racist. Like, that's all they're doing. All of this was rationalized by promoting racist hysteria about crime. Being a black man became synonymous with being a criminal because so many black men are criminals. Fictitious figures like Reagan's black welfare queen, fictitious, who supposedly picked up a welfare check in a Cadillac, became an argument for repealing welfare. Yeah, you do see a lot of that. When George Bush Sr. ran for president, he used the case of rapist Willie Horton, a black man who was released on parole and committed another crime, to defeat his more liberal opponent. The case was then used to advocate mandatory sentencing. Playing the race card is how both Reagan and Bush Sr. were elected, because people can observe this, and they do know there are problems with the black community, and the solution is not give them more money and arrest them less. Like, that's not going to work. A broad grassroots, it wasn't grassroots, anti-racist movement calling for justice for all victims of police misconduct and murders, especially unarmed people of color. You gotta love how, like, they always throw, like, all victims and then, like, immediately follow up with, like, especially people of color. Like, they really don't care about, like, these other minorities. They're just trying to, like, sort of have them team up against whitey, basically. Like, they're trying to form their own Avengers alliance against the evil, oppressive white man. Oof. The movement demanded democratic reform, starting with an end to racial profiling, holding police accountable, and rolling back their militarization. Better training in race relations and avoiding the use of deadly force were demanded. Hands up, don't shoot became the rallying cry, dramatizing Mike Brown's unarmed posture before he was shot and killed. I really gotta look that up, because I know that's bullshit. The thing is, like, all of these cases are basically interchangeable, right? Like, you have a guy that the media pretends was a good boy and didn't do nothing, who was actually doing something. Again, it doesn't really matter what it is, but generally speaking, the police were always justified. So, Black Lives Matter is basically a call for an end to racial profiling and for the police to respect the lives and rights of all people. Let's see. It is part of the demand to put the focus on poverty and the real causes of crime, rather than continue to build more prisons and hire more police. The main victims of policies that promote incarceration are black and Latino young men. Even if they survive the streets and in prison, their lives and families are damaged. In some states, ex-offenders are denied the right to vote. And since most employers won't hire them, these former prisoners face a lifetime of unemployment and poverty. Let's see. Yeah. A longtime member of the party's national board. Yeah. I want to look at the comments. Like, does anybody... Oh, no comments at all. Wow. Was that a lengthy article? Wow. Kind of pathetic. All right. Fucking communisms. Fucking commies. All right. So let's see if we can find a less biased sort of a... Look at who is behind the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's see. As a show of total ignorance as well as blatant cancel culture, media bias against this present administration and blacks themselves, the Smithsonian National Museum for African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. bought into the craziness of those who are attempting to destroy and rewrite a history. It is displaying certain signs on a chart listing whiteness, individualism, hard work, objectivity, the nuclear family, progress, respect for hard work, and rational linear thinking. Thankfully, such has since been removed. Unfortunately, the plague of denigrating societal values of success in this democratic republic, as if blacks do not exhibit such, may be beyond perceived racism, further contributing to why certain individuals fail to realize their dreams and goals. Let's see. This desecration of monuments and violence associated with riots must not be allowed, no matter the fault, for the safety of our lives depend on it. Let's see. I don't find this interesting. Black Lives Matter was created as a part of the Chinese Communist organization operating in the United States called Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Let's see. Yeah, I need to get more specific than this. I need better sources. but again, you can kind of see how the interests of the Communist Party and the Black Lives Matter sort of overlaps. Again, we'll speak more about this as more of it becomes available. If I find a really good source, I'll be sure to inform you. But right now, it just needs to be said that the riots need to stop, and the police are doing nothing wrong. I think that's really all we need. Like, vote out the Democrats. Like, seriously, the Democrats really fucked themselves over, because if they lose all of their major cities, like, and a lot of these Democrat strongholds start becoming dominated by Republicans, and things start shifting, like, they are gonna be completely fucked. Like, they are not gonna be able to have a leg to stand on. They really aren't. Once things start getting better, and once they do, it's going to be because of people like Trump. You know what I mean? Like, it's because they're not having these communists, right? These Venezuela-trained individuals sort of ruining their cities and making things worse for everyone. Not just the 1%, but like the poor too. Like, I do think like the poor really need to get this through their skulls. Like, you're not going to be happier by making other people as poor as you. Like, that's all this is going to be. Like, that's all like the redistribution of wealth is going to be, is that like everyone is just going to be in poverty. Like, that's it. All right. Oh wait, is the oh no. All right, so I wanted to end off on a very, very, very insightful, a very hopeful, optimistic sort of a trend. Well, a trend I've been noticing among celebrities, among culture, among like people around me. People are starting to wake up, and I do think this isn't just the true for those of us who are like, Trump supporters, who are Republicans, who well, I mean, I consider myself an independent. People, red-pilled individuals, like younger people, like people in our sphere, like outside of that, like even on the left, the very extreme left, I would say, people who have been known for being extremely liberal in the past, people like J.K. Rowling. Even they are having enough when it comes to certain aspects of this bullshit. When it comes to J.K. Rowling specifically, Joe is a classical feminist, right? Someone who values and appreciates the good that women can do in society, right? Like, that's what Joe believes in. And of course, women are good. Women are wonderful. I fucking love women. I have sex with them all the time. But Joe has been in conflict in the past couple of weeks with with the trans community, because Joe has made it abundantly clear that she firmly believes that transgender women are not women, they're men. I mean, she doesn't specifically say that. She does go to extreme lengths to sort of skate around the issue. She doesn't want to straight up like call it for what it is. She doesn't want to straight up call it like mental illness or whatever. She just sort of says that, like, yeah, I respect transgender people, but they can't be considered women, because she's realized, as I've realized, as you have realized, I'm sure, that the transgender community sort of detracts from actual issues that women face every day. You know what I mean? Like, you have so many like, trannies want to be in the women's bathroom. Like, these guys with dicks want to go in there and start like fucking around with making women uncomfortable in this very very sensitive space. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like, Joe, maybe we should bring up the whole what is her actual quote? I might as well read it on trans. We might as well go over the Glamour article, because a lot of these people have tried to debunk these articles, but they've completely failed. J.K. Rowling writes about her reasons. I can never remember. Is it Rowling or Rowling? I want to say it's Rowling, but I keep. Okay, we're looking this up because this drives me nuts, and I can never. Yeah. Rowling. Okay, so it is Rowling. All right. Rolling. Okay. Rolling. Okay. Okay, Rolling. So she just doesn't correct people when they get it wrong. Yeah, I mean, shit. Rolling. All right. This isn't an easy piece to write, for reasons that will shortly become clear. Oh, for the record, this is J.K. Rowling writes about her reasons. Rowling. Okay. Writes about her reasons for speaking out on sex and gender issues. This isn't an easy... This piece contains inappropriate language for children. Oh yeah, trannies are inappropriate for children. This isn't an easy piece to write, for reasons that will shortly become clear. But I know it's time to explain myself on an issue surrounded by toxicity. Oh no, did she just call trannies toxic? I write this without any desire to add to that toxicity. For people who don't know, last December I tweeted my support for Maya Forstater, a tax specialist who lost her job for what were deemed transphobic treats. Oh wow, I wonder... She took her case to an employment tribunal, asking the judge to rule on whether a philosophical belief that sex is determined by biology is protected in law. Judge Taylor ruled that it wasn't. My interest in trans issues predated Maya's case by almost 2 years, during which I followed a debate around the concept of gender identity closely. I've met trans people and read sundry books, blogs, and articles by trans people, gender specialists, intersex people, psychologists, safeguarding experts, social workers, and doctors, and followed the discourse online and in traditional media. By the way, this is actually how I started really hating the LGBT community, by actually reading the shit they put out. I might be talking about that later, because Harry Potter is actually relevant when it comes to this situation, but yes. When you surround yourself with these people, you can't really take them seriously. On one level, my interest in this issue has been professional because I'm writing a crime series set in the present day, and my fictional female detective is of an age to be interested in and affected by these issues herself. But on another, it's intensely personal, as I'm about to explain. Oh, your self-insert character, Robin? I mean, I fucking love Robin, but she's totally a self-insert character. All the time I've been researching and learning, accusations and threats from trans activists have been bubbling in my Twitter timeline. This was initially triggered by a like. When I started taking an interest in gender identity and transgender matters, I began screenshotting comments that interested me, as a way of reminding myself what I might want to research later. On one occasion, I absent-mindedly liked, instead of screenshotting. That single like was deemed evidence of wrongthink, and a persistent low level of harassment began. Yeah, even she's using term like wrongthink now. It's becoming a thing, and I do think people are actively pushing against it. Like, people are sick of this bullshit. Months later, I compounded my accidental like crime by following Magdalene Burns on Twitter. Magdalene was an immensely brave young feminist and lesbians don't exist, who was dying of an aggressive brain tumor. I followed her because I wanted to contact her directly, which I succeeded in doing. However, as Magdalene was a great believer in the importance of biological sex and didn't believe lesbians should be called bigots for not creating trans women with penises, dots were joined in the heads of Twitter trans activists, and the level of social media abuse increased. Yeah, this is a good example of like the left tearing itself apart. Like, either transgender women are women, or lesbians are dating men. Like, it's like, it's these kind of issues, these kind of contradictions that sort of like lead to cracks forming in the narrative. Like, you either become super insane, super involved with the party, with what they believe, and swallow all of their horseshit, or you do what Joe does and actually stands up to it, actually involves herself in these issues further, and realizes that these people are completely delusional and not to be taken seriously. Now, again, Joe's opinions on this are radically different than my own, of course. Like, I don't believe lesbians exist. Let's not talk about that. I don't believe lesbians exist. Transgenderism is just a form of is just a form of delusion that needs to be treated, not the way they're treating it, which is actually kind of barbaric and horrific. You should be making people feel comfortable with their natural body. Like it's weird how these people will go to like insane lengths to say shit like, oh, you can't help being fat, and you can't get rid of fat with exercise, and then just okay. There's so much to dissect here. I'm going all over the place. I apologize. I mentioned this all only to explain that I knew perfectly well what was going to happen when I supported Maya. I must have been on my 4th or 5th cancellation by then. I expected the threats of violence, to be told I was literally killing trans people with my hate, to be called cunt and bitch, and of course, for my books to be burned. Although, one particularly abusive man told me he composted them. Oh man, was that man a tranny? Oh, are you misgendering him, Joe? What I didn't expect in the aftermath of my cancellation was the avalanche of emails and letters that came showering down upon me, the overwhelming majority of which were positive, grateful, and supportive. The silent majority in action. Like, all we're waiting for, or all anyone is waiting for, really, they want someone to come out and say the things they've been saying. Trump did it with immigration and like economic things, and Joe is doing it with women's relation, the feminist relationship with the transgender community. Like people are saying, she's saying shit that you've simply been not allowed to say for the longest time, and now because of what Joe has done, it's become more and more mainstream. I am not exaggerating here. I think that standing up to the trans community is probably one of the best things Joe has ever done in her life. Like I am not exaggerating. Like this is this. I am phenomenally impressed with her, and I do truly believe she's like a good person. But. It's just kind of ridiculous to see like the weird harassment campaign that's come after her for simply speaking the truth. You know what I mean? Transgender women are not women. They came from a cross-section of kind, empathetic, and intelligent people, some of them working in fields dealing with gender dysphoria and trans people, who are all deeply concerned about the way a socio-political concept is influencing politics, medical practice, and safeguarding. They're worried about the dangers to young people, gay people, and about the erosion of women's and girls' rights. Above all, they're worried about a climate of fear that serves nobody, least of all trans youth. Well, first of all, okay. Again, she's basically doing the right thing, but like she really needs to stop saying things like trans youth. There is no such thing. Like it's like the whole lesbian thing. Like it's like a vegan dog. Like you're not. It's not the kid. It's the parents, or the school system like encouraging this kind of degenerate behavior. Again, there are lots of sources for it, but it's not the kids. Like I'd stepped back from Twitter for many months before and after tweeting support for Maya because I knew it was doing nothing good for my mental health. I only returned because I wanted to share a free children's book during the pandemic. Immediately, activists, I actually have not read the book yet, maybe I should do that. Immediately, activists who clearly believe themselves to be good, kind, and progressive people, progressive meaning communists, people swarmed back into my timeline, assuming a right to police my speech, accuse me of hatred, call me misogynistic slurs, and above all, as every woman involved in this debate know, TERF. If you didn't already know, and why should you, TERF is an acronym coined by trans activists, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. In practice, a huge and diverse cross-section of women are currently being called TERFs, and the vast majority have never been radical feminists. Yeah, sure. Examples of so-called TERFs range from the mother of a gay child who was afraid their child wanted to transition to escape homophobic bullying. What? A gay child? No child is fucking gay. Like, again, it's the parents. Again, don't take these people seriously. Because they're allowing any man who says they identify as a woman into the women's changing rooms. Ironically, radical feminists aren't even trans exclusionary. They include trans men in their feminism because they were born women. But accusation of turfery have been sufficient to intimidate many people, institutions, and organizations I once admired. Oh wow, you're starting to notice the the issues plaguing society, who are cowering before the tactics of the playground. They'll call us transphobic. They'll say I hate trans people. What next? They'll say you got fleas? Speaking as a biological woman, a real woman, a lot of people in positions of power really need to grow a pair, which is doubtless literally possible, according to the kind of people who argue that clownfish prove humans are a dimorphic species. Holy fucking shit, based and red-pilled. Like, it really does feel like she's just sort of like throwing all these smoke screens out there to hide the fact that she really, really does not like trannies. I mean, as you shouldn't, like, again, but like, a lot of people shouldn't. People should not be angry at her for this, like, at all. And I'm not angry with her. I've been supporting her her wholeheartedly. I believe I have officially endorsed her on blackcatbooks.org. Let me see. Did I talk about that? I think I did make a post about it. Let's see. I thought I did, but maybe not. I mean, I know I made tweets about it. I thought I did. Weird. I mean, I guess I could do it again tomorrow if I hadn't actually publicly endorsed her. I swear I did, but... Huh. Yeah, I've been so busy shitting on Lindsay Ellis, I forgot to endorse an actual woman worth supporting, an actual woman who can actually... A woman who can actually write, you know what I mean? Like, shit. Is that why you're so salty, Lindsay? Because Joe is infinitely more successful than you, who's calling you out on your bullshit? Like, okay, so why am I doing this? Why speak up? Why not quietly do my research and keep my head down? Well, I've got 5 reasons for being worried about the new trans activism and decided I needed to speak up. First, I have a charitable trust that focuses on alleviating social deprivation in Scotland, with a particular emphasis on women and children. Among other things, my trust supports projects for female prisoners and for survivors of domestic and sexual abuse. I also fund medical research into MS, a disease that behaves very differently in men and women. It's been clear to me for a while that the new trans activism is having, or is likely to have, if all demands are met, a significant impact on many of the causes I support because it's pushing to our road the legal definition of sex and replace it with gender. Yeah, which, again, is super retarded and really should have been called out a long time ago. And it has been. Like, I've talked about this before, but science has... I talked about this last time, I think, when I talked about, like, the erosion of science, the degradation of sciences. Like, you're basically having science be replaced by, like, social activism. So you're sort of, like, redefining words that don't really work in conjunction with reality. Like Joe says, replacing sex with gender, right? Like, gender is what you identify as, right? So, like, oh, you have to... You legally identify as a woman, so you have to be treated as a woman, even though you're a biological man, and you're therefore built completely differently, even after going under the knife for, like, the bazillion of things you have to go through in order to pass for, like, a week maybe. Well, okay, passing trannies don't really exist either, but you know what I mean. The second reason is that I'm an ex-teacher and the founder of a children's charity, which gives me an interest in both education and safeguarding. Like many others, I have deep concerns about the effect the trans right movement is having on both. The third is that, as a much banned author, I'm interested in freedom of speech and have publicly defended it, even onto Donald Trump. Oof. I don't get why she hates Trump so much. Like, it's so fucking stupid. Like, stop worrying about our elections, Joe. We elected the right people. Did you? The fourth is where things start to get truly personal. I'm concerned about the huge explosion in young women wishing to transition, and also about the increasing numbers who seem to be detransitioning, returning to their original sex, because they regret taking steps that they have. Yeah, that happens a lot with women. Women, female to male trannies, they tend to detransition back. It happens a lot. I've seen a lot of people do that. It's very, very common with these people. Again, they're sort of pressured by the people around them to do it, and then they go through with it, and then they realize that, like, wait, this is fucking retarded, and they detransition back, as opposed to men who just keep going more and more extreme. Like, they're just like, oh, I just haven't become a real girl yet. Like, that's delusional, right? And taken away their fertility. Some say they decided to transition after realizing they were same-sex attracted, and that transitioning was partly driven by homophobia, either in society or in their families. Yeah, they were not. Again, lesbians don't exist. Most people probably aren't aware, I certainly wasn't until I started researching this issue properly, that 10 years ago the majority of people wanting to transition to the opposite sex were male. Oh, yeah, gee, imagine that. I wonder again, I think I've said this on stream before as well, man. I'm going like really woke on this anti-gay bullshit today, but I'm going full like red pill on this. There's so much to talk about. I'm sorry for interrupting the article, but overwhelmingly, the gay community is male. You know, like the vast majority of like gay females are like bisexual women who always prefer dick. I mean, overwhelmingly prefer dick. Like, to the point where, like, they're not really bisexual. Just like they're not really lesbians. They're just not gonna fuck anyone that they're not attracted to. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the mindset. Like, again, like, women sort of have this perspective that, like, oh, if I don't want to fuck every guy that I'm around, that must mean that I'm a lesbian or whatever. And it's not because, like, well, they're just not around. Again, you shouldn't, if you're a woman, you shouldn't want to bang every guy you see. Like, that's just stupid. Like, that's just okay. Most people, that's normal. Like, shit. Most people probably aren't aware, I certainly wasn't until I started researching the issue properly, that 10 years ago, the majority of people wanting to transition to the opposite sex were male. That ratio has now reversed. The UK has experienced an increase in girls. Let's see. Autistic girls are hugely overrepresented in their numbers. The same phenomenon has been seen in the U.S. In 2018, American physician and researcher Lisa Lippman set out to explore it. In an interview, she said, parents online were describing a very unusual pattern of transgender identification where multiple friends and even friend groups became transgender identified at the same time. Yeah, because it's just a trend. Like, gayness is just a trend. So, like, now that it's, like, the cool thing to do, women are trying to do it more and will abandon it once it stops being trendy, essentially. I would have been remiss had I not considered social contagion and peer influences as potential factors. You do see this a lot. Like that's actually happened under the pandemic. Actually, now that people are like away from their friends, now that they're away from the schools, like there was like an entire class of like 9 people who were 9 kids who were all going to transition, and under the pandemic they all transitioned back because they didn't have the peer pressure to go through with it. Lippman mentioned Tumblr, Reddit, well, transition back. Of course you can't actually transition. You can't actually detransition. It's all horseshit. Like, you are the sex you are born as. Like, it's not rocket science. It's biology. Lippman mentioned Tumblr, Reddit, Instagram, and YouTube as contributing factors to rapid onset gender dysphoria, where she believes that in the realm of transgender identification, youth have created particularly insular echo chambers. Yeah. Her paper caused a furor. She was accused of bias and of spreading misinformation about transgender people, subject to a tsunami of abuse and a concerted campaign to discredit both her and her work. The journal took the paper offline and re-reviewed it before republishing it. However, her career took a similar hit to that suffered by Maya Forsater. Lisa Lippman had dared challenge one of the central tenets of trans activism, which is that a person's gender identity is innate, like a sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is not innate either, but that's another, again, like, that's another thing. Nobody, the activists insisted, could ever be persuaded into being trans. Yeah, that is completely wrong. It's only happening because these people are being pressured so hard. The argument of many current trans activists is that if you don't let a gender dysphoric teenager transition, they will kill themselves. Excuse me, I think I'm just all right. The argument of many current trans activists is that if you don't let a gender dysphoric teenager transition, they will kill themselves. They end up killing themselves anyway. Like, trannies have like a really, really high suicide ratio. It's a joke on like Poll and like other online communities that will call these people out on their shit. In an article explaining why he resigned from the Tavistock, psychiatrist Marcus Evans stated that claims that children will kill themselves if not permitted to transition do not align substantially with any robust data in studies in this area. A lot. There is very, very little actual research to back up these people and their bullshit. Like, it's all propaganda. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all like fabricated to build up a narrative, right? That, transgenderism is a thing that's normal, acceptable, and should be supported in its current form. And just all the problems that the transgender youth have. Oh, it's because of transphobia. It's because of societal norms. You have to just accept these people, and they won't kill themselves. Like, complete horseshit. You are pushing these people down a path that will lead them to a terrible destination. Like, this behavior is not natural, it's not organic, it's not normal, and it will make these individuals miserable for the entirety of their lives. Like, you're basically just taking the misery, depression, the issues they have, and conflating it to, like, outside sources, rather than, like, other than, like, going through this ridiculous process of becoming something you're not. You know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, boys can be girls. No, they fucking can't. Like, no, they can't. It's all societal pressure. It's all pushed on them by the media, by the education system encouraging this shit. Like, it is unacceptable. The writings of young trans men reveal a group of notably sensitive and clever people. The more of their account of gender dysphoria I've read, with their insightful descriptions of anxiety, disassociation, eating disorders, self-harm, and self-hatred. Gee, I wonder why these people have all these issues. The more I've wondered whether, if I'd been born 30 years later, I too might have tried to transition. The allure of escaping womanhood would have been huge. I struggled with severe OCD as a teenager. If I'd found community and sympathy online that I couldn't find in my immediate environment, I believe I could have been persuaded to turn myself into the sun my father had openly said he'd have preferred. That's kind of interesting. It's just... When I read about the theory of gender identity, I remembered how mentally sexless I felt in youth. I remember Colette's description of herself as a mentally hermaphrodite, and Simon DeVoe's words, "It is perfectly natural for the future woman to feel indignant at the limitations posed upon her by her sex. The real question is not why she should reject them. The problem is rather to understand why she accepts them." As I didn't have a realistic possibility of becoming a man back in the 1980s, well, people today don't have that possibility now, it had to be books and music that got me through both my mental health issues and the sexualized scrutiny and judgment that set so many girls to war against their bodies in their teens. Fortunately for me, I found my own sense of otherness and my ambivalence about being a woman, reflected in the work of female writers and musicians who reassured me that, in spite of everything a sexist world tries to throw at the female body, it's fine not to feel pink, frilly, and compliant inside your own head. It's okay to feel confused, Darth, both sexual and non-sexual, unsure of what or who you are. Okay. I kind of want to comment on this. I want to be very clear here. I know transition will be a solution for some gender dysphoric people. No, it won't. Although I'm also aware that extensive research that studies have consistently shown that between 60 to 90% of gender dysphoric teens will grow out of their dysphoria. Holy fucking shit! She is so fucking red-pilled. She is so fucking... I want to be clear. I know transition will be a solution for some gender dysphoric people, but 60 to 90% of people will grow out of it. Holy fucking shit. Holy shit, she is on the ball. She is like destroying them. Like, no wonder they're so salty. No wonder they're still no wonder they're so angry at her. She's calling them out on their shit, and they really can't do anything about it. They really can't. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, call her a racist? Like, a white nationalist? A Trump supporter? Like, no, she hates Trump. Like, but what she's saying about the trans community is absolutely true. Okay. Although she's open about her past as a gay man, I've always found it hard to think of her as anything other than a woman. Gee, I wonder why. And I believe, and certainly hope, she's completely happy to have transitioned. Let's see. We're living through the most misogynistic period I've experienced. Well, for a good reason, women keep fucking everything up. Back in the 80s, I imagine that my future daughters, should I have any, would have it far better than I ever did. But between the backlash against feminism and a porn-saturated online culture, I believe things have gotten significantly worse for girls. Never have I seen women denigrated and dehumanized to the extent they are now. Yeah, the sexual revolution was a bad thing. Like, again, we might be talking about that later, but again, feminism put women down a bad road. Like, this was never a solution to your problems as a person, right? Like, you take issues that everyone goes through, like a feeling of not having personal agency, of not knowing who you want to be, and conflate it to be like something it isn't. Like, oh, if only I'd been born a boy. Oh man, if only this society wasn't so sexist against women. Like, nobody cares. It's just, okay. Never have I seen women denigrated and dehumanized to the extent they are now. From the leader of the free world's long history of sexual assault accusations and his proud boast of grabbing them by the pussy. Oh, wow. Nobody cares about, okay, to the incel movement that rages against women who won't give them sex, to the trans activists who clear... So wait, J.K. Rowling knows about the incels. J.K. Rowling calls out the incels during her post bitching about trans people and Donald Trump. Okay. I despise... I wouldn't call incels a movement, really. Like, they're just a loud vocal minority of nerds who can't get pussy. Like, they're nothing. You know what I mean? Like, they're just male feminists. They're, well, male lesbians, I should say. That's kind of my take on it. Is like, lesbians are just... Well, I typically just say lesbians are male incels, but incels are male lesbians. Lesbians are female incels, excuse me. Movement that rages against women who won't give them sex, to the trans activists who declare that TERFs need punching and re-educating. Men across the political spectrum seem to agree women are asking for trouble. Well, you kind of are. Feminism doesn't work. Everywhere, women are being told to shut up and sit down, or else. I've read all the arguments about femaleness not residing in the sex body and the assertions that biological women don't have common experiences, and I find them too deeply misogynistic and regressive. Well, here's the thing about like her implication of like misogyny, and one of the things that like I kind of observed about it, the implication is that she's talking about how men treat women specifically, but like it's not. Men don't teach women to behave the way they should. It's other women who should be doing that. So like, we have a society, we live in a society of women who are basically trained that they should be they should be men, basically, and it's making them miserable, and they're not sure why, and they just blame the men. Like, they just blame like all these things other than, you know, them not being traditionally feminine. You know what I mean? Like, they wonder why they're so miserable. It's because it's not being true to your nature. Basically, you're not fitting into a proper role in society. Like, women will never feel satisfied by making money or being successful. It's all about, like, you know, having children, having a family, which a lot of a lot of feminists have never been able to manage. And I think that's probably what happened to Jo, actually, is that, like, you know, a deeply feminist woman who, you know, ends up having a family that she clearly cares about. Like, again, it's sort of like the whole Harry Potter conundrum, right? There are lots of things that are super liberal about Harry Potter, but I think the things that really resonate with people, the thing that really makes it special is, like, you know, its association with tradition, with family values. It really emphasizes how fucked Harry is because he lost his parents at a young age. Like, I think that aspect of it has remained and will remain poignant for all time. Well, everything about this, the whole race aspect, like, oh man, people are mistreating house elves, mudbloods are mistreated. Like, it's very amateurish and kind of sloppy and doesn't really resonate very well with real world racial issues, going by what I've observed. Again, this is kind of the thing I'll need to talk about this when I talk about Harry Potter as a whole. You know, one of my favorite things ever. But my point is that Harry Potter's success is rooted in, like, its relative normalcy. Like, normal. Again, a kid going up against society, this corrupt sort of dark lord, entering the society, making his way in it, and becoming successful, and getting married and having a good life, with a loving wife and child, right? That's his happy ending. And we don't really need, as a species, much more than that. But again, like. These feminists, they sort of have created this image of themselves that like women should have more than that. They should have careers. They should do all this. They need to do like social work. They need to bring in all these immigrants. No, you don't need to do shit. Like, you just need to have kids. That's it. That's all you need to do. Like, it's not that hard. You're overthinking it. It's not that complicated. Like. Well, not even overthinking it, I think. Because, again, Jo, I think, has proven herself to be a very smart, intelligent woman who has done the right things for herself. The issue is that, like, she was specifically taught the wrong thing. And I think that's the big problem with girls today. The girls who think thottery is normal, who think we should open up our borders, who think the police should be defunded. They're being taught the wrong thing. They're not just coming up with these ideas on their own. They're deliberately being taught these toxic ideas from people who want to make society worse, actively ruin society. Like, that's kind of my view on it. Is like I think this is kind of the reassuring, sort of white pilling moment for me, though, when it comes to Jo specifically. People are going to realize, as they've realized with this with these race riots, right? With Kenosha, with the George Floyd, like, people are going to realize that, like, what we're doing now isn't working. Like, transgenderism doesn't work, feminism doesn't work. Like, it's all leading to this really corrupt, really misled society. We already have Jo in this article saying how appalled she is at how society has gotten worse over the past couple of years, not better. Since she was a kid, how it feels like it's gotten worse, and it has gotten worse. People kind of deny this, like politicians don't really want to admit it, but the world has gotten worse, or at least our society has gotten worse since the 80s or so, since all of these policies continued building up speed, continued cutting off more and more people, like continued to refuse to train more people, continued doing all these things, all these toxic practices, like. There's so much here that just there's so much to talk about. This is a very enlightening article. I'm very, very glad I read it on stream. All right, so, and I find them too deeply misogynistic and regressive. It's also clear that one of the objectives of denying the importance of sex is to erode what some seem to see as the cruelly segregationist idea of women have their own biological realities, or, just as threatening, unifying realities that make them a cohesive political class. The hundreds of emails I've received in the last few days prove this erosion concerns many others just as much. It isn't enough for women to be trans allies. Women must accept and admit there is no material difference between trans women and themselves. But as many women have said before me, woman is not a costume. Woman is not an idea in a man's head. Woman is not a pink braid. A liking for Jimmy Choo's or any of the other sexist ideas now somehow shrouded as progressives. Holy fucking shit. Moreover, the inclusive language that calls female people menstruators and people with vulvas strikes many women as dehumanizing and demeaning. I understand why trans activists consider this language to be appropriate and kind, but if those of us who have had degrading slurs spat at us by violent men, it's not neutral, it's hostile and alienating. Which brings me to the fifth reason I'm deeply concerned about the consequence of the current trans activism. I've been in the public eye now for over 20 years and have never talked publicly about being a domestic abuse and sexual assault survivor. Is she talking about her first husband? This isn't because I'm ashamed those things happened to me, but because they're traumatic to revisit. And remember, I also feel protective of my daughter from my first marriage. I didn't want to claim sole ownership of a story that belongs to her, too. However, a short while ago, I asked her how she'd feel if I were publicly honest about that part of my life, and she encouraged me to go ahead. I'm mentioning these things now in an attempt to garner sympathy, but out of solidarity with the huge numbers of women who have histories like mine, who have been slurred as bigots for having concern about single-sex spaces. I managed to escape my first violent marriage with some difficulty, but I'm now married to a truly good and principled man, safe and secure in ways I never in a million years expected to be. However, the scars left by violence and sexual assault don't disappear, no matter how loved you are, no matter how much money you've made. My perennial jumpiness is a family joke, and even I know it's funny. But I pray my daughters never have the same reasons I do for hating sudden loud noises, or finding people behind me when I haven't heard them approaching. Oh, wow. Damn, poor Joe. If you could come inside my head and understand what I feel when I read about a trans woman dying at the hands of a violent man, you'd find solidarity and kinship. I have a visceral sense of terror in which those trans women will have spent their last second on Earth. Because I too have known moments of blind fear when I realized that the only thing keeping me alive was the shaky self-restraint of my attacker. Has she ever talked about this? I don't think I've ever heard that her first husband attacked her. Like, I know he left her, but I was kind of thinking a while back, isn't it funny how he hasn't come back and tried to get money out of her? Like, isn't that kind of odd? I don't know. Like, there might be more to this story, but... So I want trans women to be safe. At the same time, I do not want to make natal girls and women safe. What the fuck is a natal girl? Don't you mean like a real girl? When you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, and as I said, gender confirmation certificates may now be granted without any need for surgery or hormones, then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. That is the simple truth. Let's see. On Saturday morning, I read that the Scottish government is proceeding with its controversial gender recognition plans, which will in effect mean that all a man needs to become a woman is to say he is one. To use a very contemporary word, I was triggered, ground down by the relentless attacks from trans activists on social media when I was only there to give children feedback about pictures they'd drawn for my book under lockdown. I spent much of Saturday in a very dark place, inside my head, as memories of a serial sexual assaults I suffered in my 20s recurred on a loop. That assault happened at a time in a space where I was vulnerable, and a man capitalized on an opportunity. I couldn't shut out those memories, and I was finding it hard to contain my anger and disappointment about the way I believe my government is playing fast and loose with women's and girls' safety. It's almost like what they're doing is not good. It's almost like they're not actually interested in the well-being of the people and are just trying to make things worse for everyone. Okay, late on Saturday evening, scrolling through children's pictures before I went to bed, I forgot the first rule of Twitter. Never, ever expect a nuanced conversation, and reacted to what I felt was degrading language about women. I spoke up about the importance of sex and have been paying the price ever since. I was transphobic. I was a cunt, a bitch, a turf. I deserved canceling, punching, and death. You are Voldemort, said one person, clearly feeling this was the only language I'd understand. Holy fuck. Was Voldemort going out, like, hunting down male to female transsexuals? Like, was Voldemort, like, fighting back against this kind of behavior? Voldemort didn't want men in women's bathrooms. Why should you? Like, I am on Team Voldemort. All hail the Dark Lord. Like, all hail Voldemort. Like, just Moles Molja. It would be so much easier to tweet the approved hashtags because, of course, trans rights are human rights, and of course, trans lives matter. Oh no. Don't you mean that all lives matter? Because, like, here's the thing about, like, the whole tranny thing. Obviously, I don't want trannies to be killed or anything like that. Like, I want them to be treated for gender dysphoria. And I don't believe that means that they should have their penis removed or they should try to transition to another sex. I believe they should be made to feel comfortable in their own skin. I don't understand what is so controversial about this. Like, oh, I don't feel like a man. Well, what does that mean? What is a man? What do you make these weird projections, like these weird ideas about what a man is, and then completely forget the fact that, like, men can be completely different from one another. Like, I'm not like most men, okay? Like, I sit here like ranting every day about stupid shit on the internet. Like, most people don't do this, okay? That doesn't mean that, like, holy shit, no other man I know does this. That means I must cut off my penis and become a tranny. Like, no, become a woman. Like, no, that's not what I want. That's not what was best for me. Like, I found something that I wanted to do, and I just did it. Like, a man is just something I am, and will just continue improving and just living a good life, basically. Like, this is the thing I've noticed about, like, trannies too, actually, is that, like, they never give advice on how to give a good life. Like, their ideas on, like, overcoming depression, don't be racist, don't be transphobic toward me, man, don't be mean, and they don't really understand that, like, you know, most people can handle being told off, like getting into a fight or something like that. Like it's nothing to me. Like I got into a situation just earlier today, actually, with this really rude Panera guy. Just fuckers. I love Panera girls, but Panera guys are just. I think he was like one of those stoner douchebags who's never going to go anywhere with their lives. I was about to talk about that on stream, actually, but maybe next time if I can remember. But anyway, I was sort of like looking down on this guy. But when I came home, half an hour later, like I completely forgot about it. Right? Like it was this really weird situation. And I just forgot about it. Like it wasn't a big deal. But transsexuals, if you call like someone like Laura Kate Dale out on their shit, call them out on like not being a real woman, like they'll make entire podcasts about it, right? Like I remember when I've told this story before. Jim Sterling and Laura Kate Dale actually talked about me on a podcast when I was actively coming out and like exposing her for. Well, exposing Josh, which is Laura's real name, exposing Josh as making up Nintendo leaks. Like, oh, he's just transphobic. Well, oh, my feelings are so hurt. How could he be so mean to me? Like, well, you were doing something that didn't have anything to do with you being like a transgender. Like, I go after like, Liam Robertson, Emily Rogers, who, from what I understand, is a real woman. That's another thing too. Like Emily Rogers, you can totally tell who is and who isn't a woman, who is and who isn't a real woman online, based on how men treat her. So like the simps, the Andre Segers of the world, the Game Explains, the people owning the game sites, like they worship Emily Rogers because she's a woman, supposedly fairly attractive. I don't think I've seen one photo of her like from years and years ago. I don't think she's that bad looking. It might have been like a MySpace angle, and it was just the one. But again, there's a reason these people are like adamantly defensive of her, because they're simping. Like they're simps. Yeah, I'm calling you out on your shit, Andre. You are a simp for Emily Rogers. But anyway, where was I going with that? Anyway, so let's see. Huge numbers of women are justifiably terrified by the trans activists. I know this. Wow, women are terrified by men. Oh man, we gotta stop this misogyny. Is that it? Like, trans misogyny, is that a thing? Can that really be a thing? Like, anyone who calls a woman a TERF, like, aren't they technically being misogynistic because they aren't taking her considerations or feelings about men invading her female space? Like, again, oof. Let's see. The one thing that gives me hope is that the woman who can protest and organize in doing so, and they have some truly decent men and trans people alongside them. Political parties seeking to appease the loudest voices in this debate are ignoring women's concerns at their peril. Oh man, oof. I think I gotta go. I feel kind of, oof. Yeah, excuse me. I gotta be going. Check out my website at Black Cat Book. Oh man, an hour and a half already. Alright, maybe we'll finish this. The last thing I want to say is this. I haven't written this essay in the hope that anybody will get out a violin for me. Not even a teeny weeny one. I'm extraordinarily fortunate. I'm a survivor, certainly not a victim. I've only mentioned my past because, like every other human being on this planet, I have a complex backstory, which shapes my fears, my interests, and my opinions. I never forget that inner complexity when I'm creating a fictional character, and I certainly never forget it when it comes to trans people. All I'm asking, all I want, is for similar empathy, similar understanding to be extended to the many millions of women whose sole crime is wanting their concerns to be heard without receiving threats and abuse. All right, so that was J.K. Rowling's great article. Ooh, I'll probably have to go through this again later. I've already been streaming a lot longer than I intended, and I kind of need to get going. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in, guys. I deeply appreciate it. Be sure to check out my website, blackcatbooks.org. Keep up with what I'm doing, what I'm playing, what I'm reading. I'm hoping to get some more book reviews done soon. Hoping to get back into reading manga, watching anime, finishing up Batman the Animated Series. So excited for all of that. But until then, I will see you all next time. Maybe I'll read the chat real quick. Yep.